Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. Oh, you can't see me. Let me bring myself up here. There we go. Okay. Hope you're all very well. Hope you had a nice weekend and you're ready for another week of crazy stuff. Well, there was a very interesting day today because Parliament reopened to have new members of Parliament and old members of Parliament to get in and swear allegiance. There were a few cases of MPs not swearing allegiance to the king, but might talk about that a little bit later. And the new chocolate fireguard was reinstated as the Speaker of the House. So I'm going to be responding to a lot of his shenanigans over the next few years, it seems, until he's replaced, of course. Anyway, guys, so what I want to show you, this is unbelievable. Rishi Sunak delivered a speech, I don't know if you heard it, to the House of Commons today. I'm not going to show it all of it because it's almost 5 minutes long, but I want to show you the beginning and the end of it. But it's mind-blowing. Have a listen to this.
Mr. Speaker-elect, I'm pleased to join the Prime Minister in welcoming you back to the Speaker's chair. And can I also praise the wonderful speech from the Honourable Member for Lancaster and Wyre. And can I start by congratulating the Prime Minister on his election victory, and as he takes on his formidable task, he and his family deserve the good wishes of all of us in this House. Now, in our politics, we can argue vigorously, as the Prime Minister and I did over the past 6 weeks, but still respect each other. And whatever disputes we may have in this Parliament, I know that everyone in this House will not lose sight of the fact that we are all motivated by our desire to serve our constituents, our country, and advance the principles that we honourably believe in. And to every member, new and old, let me welcome them to their places and congratulate them on their results. To be sent to this place by one's constituents is the greatest honour, privilege, and responsibility. I know every one of us will be trying to repay the trust placed in us, and I look forward to continuing to represent the interests of my own rural North Yorkshire constituents. One of the great aspects of our system is no matter how high you rise, you still have that constituency which keeps you grounded. And my advice to all members is to appreciate the role that you have every day that you have it. And for those of us in my party, let me begin with a message to those who are no longer sitting behind me. I am sorry. We have lost too many diligent, community-spirited representatives whose wisdom and expertise will be missed in the debates and discussions ahead. It is important that after 14 years in government, the Conservative Party rebuilds. So now we will take up the crucial role of His Majesty's official opposition, professionally, effectively, and humbly. And restoring trust begins by remembering that being here is an opportunity to do what those we serve expect of us. And in our case, that means holding the new government to account. Can I congratulate the Father of the House, the member for Gainsborough? My right honourable friend has given 41 years of remarkable, dedicated service to this House and his constituency. I know full well how ferociously my right honourable friend fights for the interests of his constituents, and I applaud him for that. My right honourable friend is also testament to the benefits of an early morning dip in the Serpentine. And members may be interested to note that the Bottomleys have also had a big influence on my right honourable friend's career. It was in 1974 that my right honourable friend ran against Arthur Bottomley in Middlesbrough in his first effort to enter this place. And today, he takes over from Sir Peter, who will be missed. And can I also congratulate the new mother of the House, the member for Hackney North and Stoke Newington. We have our differences on policy, but no one can deny the right honourable lady's important role in this House and the inspiration for so many young women of colour that she has provided. The right honourable lady is true in every sense of the word, a trailblazer.
Okay, I'll just stop it there for a moment. This is unbelievable. Who is this guy? You know, this is what Parliament should be like. Instead of this back and forth, this toxicity, this is a wonderful speech. I presume he signed off on it. He knew what it was all about before. It's not just handed to him and him reading it off. But he actually believed it. And somebody actually asked the question down here in the comments. They said, he's no longer held hostage by the right wing of his party. So this is maybe the real Rishi Sunak. This is actually what Rishi Sunak wanted to be. but he couldn't be himself because he was always trying to pander to the far right of the Conservative Party, and they wanted somebody who was aggressive. So they wanted somebody who was cutting. They wanted somebody who was unlike a gentleman. And maybe we're seeing the real Rishi Sunak here, who's coming across as a reasonable human being. That's what you'd want in a politician, and as a former prime minister. Why couldn't he be like this before? Why did he have to go down the road of immigration and, the sort of toxic rhetoric towards the Labour Party and Keir Starmer? Anyway, Brad, thank you so much for that super chat. As a result of Jacob Rees-Mogg losing his seat, this Parliament's advanced maternity by 200 years. Well said, Brad. Yes, it's finally entered the 20th century, or maybe 21st century. Like, I just want to skip towards the end then.
Sir, have always brought this house together. That was clear when we lost our colleague, Sir David Amess. And I know your guidance and support for members then was greatly appreciated. It is a privilege to be in this house. Our democracy is powerful, and as we have witnessed, it can be definitive. But I know that this house will, true to its best traditions, hold the executive to account. And I know that Mr. Speaker-elect will facilitate that. So in conclusion, Mr. Speaker-elect, I have no doubt that we will face difficult days together in this place, but I also know that I speak for the whole House when I say that we will all welcome your leadership and guidance in the months and years ahead.
Yeah. Well said, Rishi. Wonderful speech. Why the hell didn't we hear this before? But as was pointed out here in the comments, it's probably because he had to pander to the right of the party. How long before Rishi leaves? I don't know. I think he's probably, he said that he's going to stay in place until a new leader is found. So I think we're going to see a bit of infighting, to put it mildly, between different candidates to be leader of the Conservative Party going forward. But saving face, yeah, I think part of it is saving face, but it is a good speech. But why the heck didn't you deliver something like this before? Could the UK and the EU get a 6-month agreement where the UK and the EU get 6 months in each other's nations? That'd be nice. I don't see that happening. Sunak's humbling performance won't last long. I think what'll happen is he'll end up being sent to the backbenches, and then he'll probably resign from Parliament. I don't see him hanging on here. What's the point? It's a massive step down for a prime minister to be sent to the backbenches. So I don't see him staying on this for very long. Hi Max, sent over by Political Social. Yay, great to see you, Sarah. Hope you're well tonight. And welcome everyone who's over from Political Social. Hope you're doing very well. I hope you're happy with the new makeup of Parliament. So the makeup of Parliament, let's have a look at this from Sky News.
Well, the old cliche of a picture being worth a million words was definitely true today. Let's take a look at what the pictures we saw in the Commons today tell us about the reshaping of politics. Who better to do that with than Sam Goes? You've had a busy day. Tell us a bit about this. It's like the first day at school, isn't it?
It is. On command of the King, unlike your first day at school. MPs came and re-elected this man, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the 158th Speaker, to oversee the Commons chamber all the way through the next Parliament. Now, you can tell from this
why Sir Lindsay Hoyle. I would have preferred somebody else.
that the House of Commons is really busy. You can see all the people here, but that's not that unusual. That's what happens when 643 MPs turn up to work, as happens because, of course, Sinn Féin doesn't come. But I'm going to show you what is unusual with a little trick. I'm going to turn the camera around and look at this picture from the reverse angle. Here we go. You can see down, the Speaker is down here, and you can see, and this way, you can see much more clearly what's going on. So this is the government benches, and these are the opposition benches. And the key thing is that this is the gangway in between the two sides. It's filled with Labour MPs, as is the gangway all the way up to the door. So you can see lots and lots of additional Labour MPs squeezing to get on. All the benches are packed. Look just how tightly they are packed down there. Whereas on this side, much less of that, and no...
Can they not bring in some extra chairs?
sign of anybody needing to really stand in the gangway there. So you can see how the Commons Chamber's geography and composition has changed. Let's look at a few specifics. This is going to become a very familiar scene. This is Keir Starmer.
Brad says, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, Mike says, my brother knows Lindsay Hoyle personally, and he's a really nice guy, but as a speaker, he's not up to the job. No, my criticism of, and it's great that your friend knows him, but my criticism of him is nothing on a personal level. It's on a professional level. I think he has really dropped the ball over the last number of years. He allowed the Tories to run roughshod over Parliament. And then we had the episode with the SNP's motion. He's not doing his job correctly. And nothing against him as an individual. He's probably a really nice guy. He should not be in that position. He's not up to the job.
His first time at the dispatch box from this side as Prime Minister next to Lucy Powell and the Chief Whip, Alan Campbell. He's who you're going to see when you've been bad if you're a Labour MP. More whips. Quite close to Diane Abbott. Keir Starmer paid tribute to Diane Abbott. Notably, Diane Abbott had no such kind words for Keir Starmer. We're going to watch that relationship. But this is the makeup of the front bench that we'll get used to. More interesting, arguably, is Rishi Sunak. From the other side. There you can see the newly minted leader of the opposition there standing at that side of the dispatch box. The thing about this, look at the faces. James Cleverly, he could end up interim leader after Rishi Sunak. He doesn't exactly look happy. Oliver Dowden's face, a picture that tells 1,000 words. Jeremy Hunt might have been re-elected in Guildford in a shock result. He doesn't look happy either. But there are some members of the opposition benches, including the one just by your head, Ali, Ed Davey, who is. Let's go and look in a little bit closer at Ed Davey. Now, the Liberal Democrats came back with over 70 MPs, and they had one big aim in this election, which was to come back to being the third largest party. Because in 2015, that crown, if you just go up a little bit, was taken by the SNP. And when that happened, the SNP moved to the front row and the Liberal Democrats moved back. And today that has been reversed. So you can see all the smiling faces of Liberal Democrat MPs because they are back where they think they rightfully should be, on the front bench again of the opposition.
It is a pity that the Liberal Democrats didn't become the second largest party. David, thank you so much for that super chat. Lindsay is compromised, corrupt. It's really disappointing that he wasn't replaced by somebody a bit better. I criticised him a lot, and I had hoped that he would have been replaced by anyone else. But it seems that both mainstream parties say, yeah, we have our full support. We're going to give him our full support. He has our confidence, and well, that's what happened. So he's going to be Speaker for the foreseeable future. But yeah, he's not a good speaker. He's not good at holding the government to account. He seems more interested in trivial things like dress code as opposed to allowing MPs and ministers to lie. Thanks, David. Make sure to check out Indie Truck Davies' YouTube channel, The Two Davies.
And you can see. Now, I want you to remember where he's sitting, so we're going to come back to him in just a second. He's Stephen Flynn, the Westminster leader of the SNP. Now, here is a familiar face. Nigel Farage. He's sitting effectively in what I call the naughty corner. It's the back bit of the opposition benches. And there he is, surrounded by all sorts of other MPs. He is going to root himself there for the rest of the Parliament, it looks like. But let's try and trace exactly where that is in the wider House of Commons by looking at this picture. Now, I told you to remember where Stephen Flynn, the SNP leader, was. And you can see him down... There he is. Here he is. So if you remember, he was there in the last period. That's where Nigel Farage is here, next to Gavin Robinson, the DUP leader, sort of a band of different opposition MPs here. So that's where they are in the basically the sort of top right if you're looking into the Commons. And look at this guy. This is a representative of a political party that's never been there before. It's the leader of the traditional unionist voice, Jim Allister.
So I'm going to cover Jim Allister, of course. He actually delivered a speech in the House of Commons today. And Jim. Wait till the people of the rest of the United Kingdom get a bit of Jim, because he's an absolute joke. You thought the DUP were crazy. Well, the DUP are completely sane compared to the TUV. Much more to the right. But most people who know the channel know I've covered the TUV before. He's just rambling, and always about how Northern Ireland has been cut off from the rest of the UK, even though he campaigned for Brexit and still believes Brexit was a good idea.
He's a sort of hardline...
exactly, DUP on steroids.
Unionist in Northern Ireland. And he's sitting, fascinatingly, right next to Nigel Farage, but also next to some of the independent candidates that campaigned on the issue of Gaza. So that really is a kind of an odd collection of people in front of the nationalist Colin Eastwood, the SDLP leader, and George Freeman, a Tory MP. So really...
Ivan, thanks so much for that super chat. Lindsay Hoyle is better than the loudmouth, ego-seeking John Bercow. I disagree, because, yes, John Bercow was a loudmouth. He was, order. But if you look at when he was giving both sides equal time to speak, I think he ran Parliament much better than Lindsay Hoyle. Lindsay Hoyle seems more focused on procedure and not on the spirit of Parliament. While I do believe that John Bercow was more on the spirit of Parliament than the procedure. And unfortunately, when it comes to the procedure, this procedure blocks the spirit, I think. Thanks for that super chat. And of course, we can disagree on these things.
A sort of smorgasbord of different political parties there. But this is the big picture. Ali, you can see there's a cabinet minister rubbing shoulders with new MPs, with the new speaker there. The Commons geography has changed remarkably in just a matter of a few weeks, but this is what it's going to look like for years to come.
Yes, until there are rebellions and by-elections. So, of course, Reform UK turned up, as a little bit here from Sky News about it. So Farage tried to make as much, much a hullabaloo about it as possible. We're talking about 5 MPs. We're not talking about a massive party. And of course, Farage is selling this as, I'm going to hold the government to account. He doesn't understand, or he's pretending not to understand, how Parliament works. He'll be very limited in what he can do. He'll be limited in his access to different aspects of Parliament. We're talking about the main parties will be in select committees. That's where, and I keep saying, most of the real work of Parliament takes place in the select committees. And Farage won't really be there at all. And Farage isn't interested in things like that because that's the boring side. He's not able to use that for his platform. Farage will be there during PMQs, and he'll be there when he can ask a question. If he can't ask a question, he won't bother to turn up unless it's a vote that he thinks will suit his party. But like in the European Parliament, he didn't really give it a crap. He didn't give a shit. It was more about him. So if he can't pontificate, then he's not going to be there. Now, and this is something that the people of Clacton will soon find out. He's not there for them. He's there for himself. Look, most MPs... No, not even most MPs. Many MPs, not all MPs, but many MPs are there for themselves to further their careers, especially within the Conservative Party. But most MPs, I believe, are there to represent their constituents. And Farage is not there to represent Clacton. He's not going to have a surgery where he's going to listen to people's problems. He may open a surgery, but it's more about promoting himself. But he's not going to listen to people's problems about potholes or about housing or about shuttered shops in the town, anything like that, unless it's some sort of photo opportunity that he can use to boost his image. But he's not going to do the normal legwork or heavy lifting that a regular MP does. Dealing with complaints, sending out letters to people, responding to problems, asking questions on their behalf. He's not really going to do that. And frankly, I don't know why the people of Clacton thought that he would. Farage will have subsidised PFLs in the bar. Yeah, so I think it was what's her name? The new advisor to the Labour Party. She talked about closing the bar in the House of Commons, which would be a good idea. Unless you just leave a coffee machine, put in a few coins, and you get your coffee if you want to be there, late at night. But why is there a bar in the House of Commons? There shouldn't be a bar or bars. Like if you want a pub, well, the pub can be outside, but it shouldn't be inside the House of Commons. Jim Allister was absolutely reprehensible in the Commons. I think we most probably have common ground on this one. Yeah, so I'm going to check that out. I saw part of his speech, but I will cover his speech probably tomorrow. Yeah, he's a terrible individual, and he's a bit like Farage, where he's going to use this as a platform for himself. He doesn't care about the people of Northern Ireland. Like, he continually talks about how the border in the Irish Sea needs to be removed. But he's not of the idea that the UK should rejoin the European Union. That would remove the border. But as soon as you talk about that, then he says, well, that would be undoing Brexit, and we're not supposed to touch Brexit. So he wants, of course, what he wants, Jim Allister and the TUV, is a hard border on the island of Ireland. And that's not going to happen. It wasn't going to happen under the Tories, and it certainly isn't going to happen under Labour. Thanks, Ivan. Anyway, let's move on, because there's a lot of stuff to cover tonight. Do you remember Suella Braverman? Suella Braverman has been up to no good. Suella Braverman attacks Progress Pride flag as she blames Liberal Conservatives for losing election. What did I say? I told you before the election was even called that people like Braverman and Robert Jenrick, to a certain extent, would blame the Rishi Sunak and the moderates for the loss of the election. They say we should have been more extreme, we should have been more right-wing, we should have been more true conservative. But she's got herself into a bit of hot water here, because it says former Home Secretary criticised the ousted Tory government for flying the Progress Pride flag, which represents LGBT plus community, and calls for a more inclusive society. She also criticised the Conservative government for allowing children to transition to a different gender. So she's going down the road of, the Steve Bannon road, the far-right road of, this sort of culture war that's been imported from the United States. And she thinks it's going to boost her image. I think what she'll probably end up doing is defecting to... Oh no, there's some buffering. Apologies for that. Have the hamsters been fed? Yes, they have. Not sure what's happening here, but I'll keep going. I think what she's doing is she may eventually defect to Reform UK. She'll hold on to her seat to become a Reform UK MP, and then she'll be okay until the next election. I think she might do that before... her chances of winning the leadership are diminishing by the day, because she's been seen as too extreme, even by people who are extreme within the Conservative Party. They're saying, no, we don't want anything to do with her. So I think she's sinking her chances of... yes, Max, you had a few blips, but it's okay though. Thanks for that, Chris. I think she's going to sink her chances of becoming the next leader of the Conservative Party. Too extreme for the Tories, but not too extreme for Reform UK. Isn't that interesting? A bit more on this. And, she's a toxic individual who should have, unfortunately, Rishi Sunak should have kicked her out of the party. He shouldn't have given her job back.
She has said that the kind of Progress flag that was hung from Whitehall buildings was a horrible political campaign. It's very aggressive, kind of trenchant language, and it's proper culture war territory. And I think it's going to be... She is making a lot of noise in this Tory leadership campaign. Now, for what it's worth, she's unlikely to kind of succeed in this leadership campaign. Most people that I talk to on the right are talking about Robert Jenrick as their standard bearer, but it's pretty incendiary language, and the campaign isn't even formally begun yet. So you've got this position where Labour's pointing to 15 years of stability, and the Tories are about to embrace a very bloody and potentially violent leadership campaign. It's going to be a turbulent few months for them, I would have thought, or longer.
Steve, I'm interested because we talk about the future of the Tory party quite often in this show. Who are you hearing then? So Jenrick from the right, because I look at that list of people, and the Times had the odds yesterday, and I'm really interested. I can't quite see any of them as Tory leader, putative prime minister. Who are you? Who gets the? I know the favourites never win, but who are the hot favourites at the beginning?
It's fair to ask that. I think you have to look at who is left, who has survived the apocalypse which has hit the Conservative Party. And when you look at the rubble's cleared now, it's actually much more centrist. It's much more one nation. And so when you look around the contenders, you would have thought someone like Tom Tugendhat might now stand a good chance. You would have thought James Cleverly, if and when he throws his hat in the ring, would stand a good chance. And then people still keep talking to me about Priti Patel as a potential unity candidate. She's played her hand very differently this time. She's not gone hard right. She's done a lot of outreach with One Nationers, but it feels like the centrists may hold the whip hand as we go forward on this, rather than the right of the party. So, and especially if Braverman and Jenrick end up going to war in the run-up to this, is going to make it much more difficult for them.
This is interesting because I would have thought it would be going the other way. I thought that it would have been the far right of the Conservative Party would be saying, no, we should be in charge now, because they would point the finger of blame at Rishi Sunak and offload responsibility onto him. But maybe it's because people like Liz Truss lost her seat that they're going, maybe it's actually not the case. Because I think the situation would have been different if Liz Truss held on to her seat. She would have been catapulted into a position where she would be the next leader of the Conservative Party. So I think perhaps the result of the election has cooled heads somewhat and made some of them think, well, actually, if we go down the road of someone like Suella Braverman or Priti Patel, unless Priti Patel changes her rhetoric, we're going to remain in opposition. So perhaps some people in the party are not as stupid as I thought they were. But there are a lot of people, and this is the problem for the leadership, is the members of the party are much more to the right than the members of Parliament itself. So while the MPs may want somebody a bit more centrist, like, I hate to say this, but James Cleverly, or maybe Tom Tugendhat. Tom Tugendhat is much more centrist than James Cleverly or Priti Patel. I don't think the party would be happy with that. The party wants somebody like Suella Braverman, Kemi Badenoch, or Priti Patel. But and it depends on whether it will be the party party members that decide, or the MPs. It's a bit of both when it actually comes to at the end of the day. Both sides select the leader. But the party members will want somebody on the extreme, and they want to go down and double down on these culture wars and stuff like that. Could the Tories think of rejoining the EU? I mentioned this in a video. I don't know if it might drop tomorrow. I was going to drop it tonight, but I think it'll drop tomorrow. I think there's a possibility for later on, not immediately, but later on, as the Labour Party deal with Brexit, trying to reach out to businesses, trying to improve the situation for businesses, trying to smoothen out the bumps in the road, the Brexit bumps in the road, try to reduce friction in trade. I think as things start to improve, because there are tangible things that the UK government can improve on, for example, Erasmus and certain organisations that the UK can rejoin, and that's not going to really require a huge amount of negotiation. But apart from trade, but as the relationship between the UK and the EU improves, I think the Conservatives could get to a stage where they are supportive of rejoining the European Union. Now, one of my biggest problems with Brexit was that we didn't have Brexiteers and pro-EU people. We had Brexiteers and Remainers, and there's a difference between Remainers and pro-EU politicians. There are very few pro-EU politicians, because Remain is just saying, let's maintain the status quo, let's not change anything. But they were not pro-European. They were of the idea that, well, maybe we can get a few more opt-outs, so we can have a tolerable relationship with the European Union. That's not on the cards going forward. You can't sell that to the public. It has to be enthusiastic support of rejoining the European Union. And I think as we get down the Brexit road and undo aspects of Brexit, and if the Labour government is successful in achieving these things, then it will make the case for rejoining the EU much easier, and there'll be no benefit for the Conservative Party being on the opposite side of that, because it would be on the opposite side of, for example, house building. We all know that house building is required. Need to build more homes. any Tory politician who's against that is beyond the pale. So they're not going to get a lot of support. Of course, you're going to have Brexiteers. Of course, you're going to have people who be against the idea of rejoining the European Union. But I think they will be minor voices in a future Conservative Party. But I'm talking about distant future. I'm not talking about straight away. Freckle Punny, thank you so much for that super chat. Braverman, I love that. I love that there was a picture of, just to go off topic for a moment, there was a picture of the child from Omen. They showed Trump as well, and it was like, they grow up so quickly. Anyway, Braverman should join Deform UK Limited and make a leadership bid. All without realizing she needs to own the dodgy outfit first. Yes, she could apply to become leader of Reform UK, and Nigel Farage go, no. This isn't the party. This is the company. This is a company, and I'm the biggest shareholder. Thanks for that. But well said. Yeah, undiluted hate in human form. That's what she is.
You'll keep talking to me about Priti Patel as a potential unity.
Sorry, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see if the Conservatives actually move back to the centre. But I think they're going to dabble with the far right for a bit more before they realise it's not actually helping them. And we'll probably see it at the next few by-elections. So there will be some Labour MPs who will mess up, or there'll be some sort of problem, and they will resign, and there will be by-elections. And this will be the first real test of the new Labour administration. And, the threats will come from both sides. There'll be people on the left who will want to win that seat or take votes away from Labour, but there'll, of course, be those on the right who'll see it as an opportunity. Ivan, thank you again for that super chat. I'm 40 this coming Saturday, so I won't say hello. I won't say happy birthday yet. An early birthday present arrived in the early hours of Friday the 5th of July. I'm still on cloud 9 with Labour's big win and massive majority. Congratulations. So yeah, it was, I was very skeptical, and I still am skeptical about some things. Thanks so much once again, Ivan. I was very skeptical and still am skeptical about some things. So maybe cynical is maybe the right word. I'm concerned about what West Streeting wants to do with the NHS, but it's good, and I will commend the government when they do the right thing. So, for example, West Streeting is meeting with junior doctors. This is something the Tories refuse to do. He is meeting with the dentists to improve their contract, hopefully. So at least he's starting to speak with them. This is something that the Tories refused to do. They just kept blaming the doctors and dentists and nurses and saying that, well, what they're demanding is too much, and blame them for the NHS waiting list going up. And and Rishi Sunak was in that boat as well. I was commending him before, but he was engaging in some pretty terrible rhetoric against doctors, nurses, and the healthcare workers. So at least with West Streeting, he is doing something positive. And I think it's important not to be too cynical and just attack, but also to commend if they do something right. And of course, meeting with doctors and nurses and dentists is the right step to take. And of course, it helps the Labour government if they want to bring down the waiting list. They need to improve the working conditions for healthcare workers, and they need to improve wages. And if they're able to do that, they're going to be able to retain staff. That's good for the doctors and nurses, good for the medical staff, but it's also good for the government because they're able to sell this as a win. Look, we're actually doing something, and that will help them maintain their support going into a by-election or a general election. But should I say happy birthday, or is it's too early? It's bad luck to say happy birthday too early, so I won't say it yet. Brad, thank you so much for that super chat. If Patel's unity candidate, Johnson's a virgin. Yes. Yes. How do I respond to that? Let's stick with Priti Patel. This is somebody who I was just thinking about her today when I was listening to the Irish Taoiseach, Irish Prime Minister Taoiseach was interviewed by Sky News a couple of days ago. I was just thinking about it, how he was talking about we want to build better relations with the new Labour government, And then I was thinking of Priti Patel. Wasn't it her that was saying that we, was it during the COVID or was it? No, it was during the Brexit negotiations. Priti Patel was saying, well, we should starve the Irish. Cut off the food supply if they don't agree to our demands. So she's a wonderful individual, isn't she? Thanks, Brad. You should sing it. No, it's too early. It's too early. It's bad luck if you sing too early. So I want to move on to another big story this week. I didn't cover it myself in a video, but it's, of course, one of the biggest stories of this week.
Paul O'Brien has been here for the last few weeks. Paul, pretty unpredictable stuff, isn't it?
It certainly is. It reminds you of that quote from Charles de Gaulle, how can anyone govern a country with 246 different types of cheese? It's not about cheese. There isn't a particular political culture in France of compromise. And now what you have, as you said, is 3 different blocks, none of whom can make a majority. And their factions within those blocks are not only enemies, they see each other as the devil incarnate. So that's the backdrop behind the potential parliamentary chaos we see now. Over the last 24 hours, of course, though, the headlines have been a resurgent left. For supporters of the left, this was more than an exit poll party. It was personal. Would their country still be their country when the countdown reached 1? On to the centre of Paris last night, Place de la République, the spiritual home of protest, there were scenes. The reason, a hastily put together bloc of left-wing parties came out on top. The New Popular Front, named after the alliance formed to resist Nazism in the 30s, took over 180 seats, beat the far-right National Rally.
We finally did something we're proud of. We're proud of France again. Those ideas have disappeared. Our national motto lost its meaning. Now we've got it back, and it's a...
Kai makes a very valid point here. What if the UK had 2-round voting like France? It would change things dramatically, because as we see, and it always happens in France, or almost always happens in France, with the two-round voting. It's in the first round, the people dabble with the far right, and then in the second round, they take a deep breath and they go, actually, that was a bad idea. So they vote against them out. They vote them out, or they vote against them. Or reduce their chances of getting in. This is a good way of voting, I think, because many times people will issue a protest vote and then they realize after, actually, that wasn't a good idea. Like Brexit. Many people voted for Brexit to give the Tories a bloody nose, and then after, one of the first searches on Google after the election was, what is the EU? If people have had a chance to actually take a step back and go, actually, was it a good idea to vote to leave the European Union? Maybe not. If there was a second round of voting, that could have been different. Of course, referendums are different, but it is something that we're seeing a lot with the French president, or with the election, the general election, the assembly elections as well. The chance for people to take a step back. Now, it depends on, of course, how much of the primary, if the candidate receives more than 50%, I believe, of the vote in the first round, they're automatically a deputy in the National Assembly. But if they don't, then it goes to a second round. But it is a good way of, for citizens to go, wait a minute, was this a good idea? And this is what's happened recently. And now, there's a lot of celebrating. It's very positive that Marine Le Pen did not win the 200 seats or whatever she was expected to win. She didn't become the biggest party. She came third. This is an alliance of left-wing parties. And as those of us on the left know, we're not very good at sticking together to get things done. And there is a real risk, and I'm being honest here, but there is, it seems, a real risk that this will fragment. And you're trying to bring people from the far left into and people on the center left together to work on something. it's going to be difficult, and there's a risk that it will fall apart. And then if it does fall apart, then there is a chance that maybe if they're not able to form a government, if there are new elections, I don't know all the details of this, but there is of course a chance then that Le Pen can regroup and say, actually, we can be a viable alternative. Hopefully I'm wrong on that. I hope that's not the case. But if not, but when it fragments, the rise of the far right isn't good for anyone. No, it's not. Because they're not interested in improving things for ordinary people. It's about tax cuts for the rich. It's about ethno-nationalism. It's about othering people. It's about being anti-immigrant. It's not about improving things. What they will do is they'll use hot topic issues like housing, poverty, cost of living, energy prices. They'll use these things as tools to convince people to vote for them. But their goal is not to improve the lives of ordinary people. They never have, and they never will. But unfortunately, people are bought into these things. Okay, let's move on. Could the UK system cause France? Has it better? Yeah. America is the key battleground now. Yes, and. So a few days ago, this is an interesting, I wasn't going to talk about the US, but it is an interesting situation which is maybe developing. I was saying not too long ago that Joe Biden should step aside and allow somebody else to run. But it seems that maybe that's not the best idea. That it may be better for Joe Biden to stick to his guns. If he's able to win the next debate, if he's able to come across as coherent, if he's able to face down Donald Trump, perhaps he can turn things around. Perhaps voters will not look at Joe Biden, but they will look at his administration and say, I would prefer Joe Biden's administration. I'm not happy with Joe Biden. I'm worried about Joe Biden, but I prefer to have his administration than I would Donald Trump's administration. So maybe this is something that the public can be convinced to support. But I'm still very concerned about Joe Biden because he's not capable, I think, of maintaining a sort of coherence when he's challenged by people like Donald Trump. We saw the debate where he fell apart. His supporters said this was because he was tired, this was because he was having a bad day. But okay, if you said once, that was the case once, what if it happens again? What is he going to do if he collapses on stage? What is he going to do if he has a situation like that with Donald Trump again? Max, you're giving the US electorate too much credit? Now the candidate is great for the US. It will come down to the VP picks. And Kamala Harris is not all that popular. Although I don't know who Donald Trump has chosen at this stage. Not what was the guy with the fly in his head? Max, is that Jack Daniels behind you? No, it's not. It's Scottish whiskey, real whiskey, or Irish whiskey, and Scottish whiskey is the real thing. No, it's not Jack Daniels. It's to commemorate a certain Tory MP who lost his seat in Scotland. It's I don't know if you can see Moray. Glen Moray is the name of the whiskey. No, it's not product placement. Anyway, let's move on. The next story I want to cover. Actually, we're way over the time, so I better take a short comedy moment, and then we'll be back in just a jiffy with more serious stuff. So I hope you enjoy this. Mike Pence. Pence the magic fly.
Welcome to Broken News. Nigel Farage says he's still looking for new and inventive ways to fuck the UK. Having already done it sideways and backwards, the clammy bag of fags says he's focusing on exploring other entry points to give the country a good porking. Our reporter has more.
Like some chinless twatty whack-a-mole in mustard slacks, you bonk Nigel Farage on his fat head in one place and up he pops somewhere else, parping like a toad-faced foghorn and smelling like an ashtray's arsehole, usually on Newsnight. Now, not content with screwing your nan out of her life savings by being one of the bad boys of Brexit, along with pint-sized, lawyer-loving journalist silencing Trump-felcher Aaron Banks and some other quisling pricks, Farage has made a comeback and says he's ready to screw us all over again. This time, he wants to do it right up the Clacton, a place already shafted by the milkshake magnate's life mission to isolate the UK. The salty seaside settlement will now decide if it should offer up its dry anus for yet more fiscal raw dogging by the brown-toothed tweed-wearing twat. Like some jowly, wheezing, leather-faced narcissist trying to suck off Lord Sugar to win The Apprentice, Mr Farage insists he's a proven winner with a track record of success, a claim Broken News understands to be hilarious bollocks, given that he's lost elections in Eastleigh in 1994, Salisbury in 1997, Bexhill and Battle in 2001, South Thanet in 2005, Bromley and Chislehurst in 2006, Buckingham in 2010, and South Thanet again in 2015. In a WhatsApp message seen by Broken News, one senior cabinet member has said, "Oh, for fuck's sake, just give him a seat in the House of Commons so we can put him in the back and ignore him like we do with the Green Party MPs. And maybe then Newsnight will stop booking him every cocking week." Back to you.
Thank you. Well, Mr Farage has responded by barking out of his stinky gob that he's not yet tired of exploring innovative ways to heave himself into the UK. He's saying he'll continue to bend it over the desk of dignity and inseminate the political discourse with the eggy essence of Enoch Powell, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin using his tiny mushroom dick. What a lovely story. That's all.
Okay, unfortunately, this is a little bit out of date because, of course, Farage has won his seat. But I thought it was for nostalgia, a time when Nigel Farage was no longer a member, was no member of the House of Commons. No longer. We wish. So let's move on. Labour to woo global investors at early October summit. Ministers hope to surpass the $29.5 billion unveiled at last November's Global Investment Summit at Labour's inaugural event, which will be held early October, Sky News learns. So Sky News has learned that ministers have penciled in a date of around 8th of October for a Global Investment Summit, which would meet Labour's campaign pledge to stage the event within 100 days of coming to power. Labour said that it's hopeful that the inaugural investment summit can trump, no pun intended, the two held by Conservative governments in recent years, the more recent of which last November unveiled £29.5 billion in investment in new projects and capital. Although those who have attended the previous summits were the Blackstone chief Stephen Schwarzman, Goldman Sachs boss David Solomon, his JP Morgan Chase counterpart Jamie Donin, and Inacu Galan, the chairman of Iberdrola, the Spanish Spanish owner of Scottish Power. The new business secretary John Reynolds told private sector business leaders on Tuesday that he would aim to be accessible to them and unashamedly pro-enterprise. So, of course, this is about attracting investment, showing the UK is open to business. Is it going to attract investment? Yes, I think something that Labour will have going for them at the very beginning is stability. So they're able to sell this idea that we're stable, we're going to be in charge for the next 5 years, we have a massive majority, so don't worry, we're not going anywhere anytime soon. I have all of the party on board with me, with my manifesto, so there's nothing to be concerned about. So I think this is, I've said before, business wants stability. They're not so much concerned about whether things are improving or not improving. It's more important is stability, because then they can plan for the future. Things are not going well, okay, it's not great, but we can at least plan for the future if we know that what's going to happen. So Labour are selling this idea of stability, and it'll probably work. And I think this is within the 100 days, so it's within the honeymoon period in a sense. You know, Keir Starmer has already seen his poll ratings increase since he took over. This is going to stabilize. This is going to be the case for a while. And I think the honeymoon period is going to last for a few months. And then we're going to see whether it's going to stick, because he can make promises, but he has to deliver. And if he's not delivering, then he's going to be in trouble, Keir Starmer. And if he's in trouble, then the party will jettison him and they'll replace him with somebody else. So if they want to attract investment, they have to say we're open for business, we're providing stability. But of course, the elephant in the room, Brexit, will have to be tackled. And he will have to deal with the requests of business to improve trade with the European Union, the single market, and to allow business to have better access to workers. Because if you want to grow your businesses, you need access to more staff, trained staff. And this is a problem because of Brexit, the ending of freedom of movement. It's more difficult to access the workers they need. So hopefully, we're going to have to wait and see how this goes, but hopefully things will improve. Because, people have gone through a cost of living crisis. People are still going through a cost of living crisis. So it's important that the new government resets things and tries to improve things. Labour is generally not good at replacing unpopular leaders. To be frank, The Rock has higher reliable ratings than any Tory. not hard for Starmer, low bar stuff. Yeah, like they're starting from absolute zero here. So anything they do will improve things. So just providing stability will improve things. Jesus Max, single market is not available for the UK. No, it's not. I never said it was. I'm just saying that if they want to access the single market, they need to be a member of the European Union. But they can improve aspects of trade. And I think, for example, dynamic alignment will help in a way. It's not going to allow the UK to rejoin the European Union or the single market. But dynamic alignment means that it would reduce some of the paperwork going forward, because if you're already aligned with EU standards, then when the UK eventually does rejoin the European Union, it'll be a bit easier. There's still the paperwork and the costs of Brexit. That's not going to go away. Any news on Labour helping with the cost of living? Well, they keep saying that they're going to grow the economy. And if they grow the economy, then this will fund public services. But growing the economy takes time. So I think they're saying at the moment, well, they haven't said what they're going to do about the cost of living. They haven't said anything about benefits. I think we're going to have to wait for the budget for that. And that won't be until October, maybe. So it's going to be... See, there's also the summer recess. Remember, Parliament is always on holiday. So the recess is probably coming up soon. Parliament will be off for a few months, weeks anyway. And then they'll come back probably in September, and then we'll be talking about a budget then. So it's summer recess might be cancelled, but I don't think it will. It'd be difficult to count. Maybe I don't know who's in charge of cancelling or the calendar of recess. Isn't it the Speaker? But I think it'll be difficult to force MPs into the House of Commons if it's for just general day-to-day business. So for emergency situations, yes, I understand that. But what's this wealth plan? So there's talk about having a wealth fund, a sovereignty fund, I think it is, a sovereignty wealth fund, where they put money aside for a rainy day or for massive infrastructure projects in the future. But you need to have the money first, I think. Hey Max, do the Brexit tariffs fully come into effect this year, or do they come into effect, have some of them? So some of them I think are coming in also in October. It's a gradual thing. So I think some of them are actually coming in October as well. So, no, but the tariffs have been postponed again, I believe. Now, I was thinking of the new checks that are supposed to come in. So the tariffs have been postponed until 2025, I believe. I'll need to double check that. So, because the EU said, look, when it comes to certain tariffs, we think it's a bad idea to implement them now. So this has helped the UK in a sense, because they're not going to be exposed to these tariffs. They're not going to suffer these tariffs. But I think for some things, maybe for steel, these tariffs have already come in. or they're coming in this year. Grow the economy with what and how? Well, George, that's an interesting question. How do you grow the economy? So Labour have said that they can grow the economy through stability. So providing stability, this will help grow the economy. I'm not sure what percentage you get from that. And they said that they're going to attract investment. So this summit is to attract investment. This will help grow the economy. But once again, I think there are two things that are not really getting mentioned here. And the first is access to labour. And the second is trade. Because if there are barriers to trade, you need to bring down those barriers if you want to grow your economy. And you need workers if you want to grow your economy, skilled workers. Fact Not Fiction, great to see you on the stream tonight. Hope you're well. After Labour's message is not... message in Northern Ireland. It's clear that they want nothing to do with Northern Ireland. So tell me, what is the UK? What the UK can offer that the EU doesn't already have? July 2025 sees the real Brexit hit and the EU gain. So in 2026 there should be a review of the TCA. This was the post-Brexit trade deal. So there should be a review of that, but that's in 2026. But what can the UK offer the EU? Well, some people have been saying a security agreement. But a problem with the security agreement is, okay, you can offer a security agreement, sharing data, sharing information, working together on projects. But the problem, of course, is the single market. Because if you want to import weapons or technology from the European Union, there's still the single market problem there. So there's that cost. But this year and next year is going to be, once again, bad years regarding Brexit. Thanks so much, Fact Not Fiction. Gareth, great to see you on the stream tonight. Hope you're well. For your information, Max, the last investment summit was just Liz let us pray. It was burning piles and piles of pound notes on stage like 3 or 4 days. Yeah, that was it, yes. That worked out really well, didn't it? Nobody's mortgage went through the roof, metaphorically there. Maggie, great to see you on the stream. Thank you so much for that super chat. I'm trying to respond to all these super chats as best I can. Recess is currently set as the default of all of August, but MPs vote for the dates when it starts and ends. They haven't done so yet. How many will the MPs be whipped to vote when recess will begin and end? Because some of them may want to go on holiday. But I think what Labour want to do is start fixing problems as soon as possible. So they would like to have Parliament open as much as possible, I think, because there's a lot to do. And, they have a limited amount of time that they can use this political capital, because the longer they leave it, the more difficult it will be. And the longer they leave it, the less time they will have towards the end of Parliament to implement things, because a lot of bills can take a long time. Bills can take a long time, up to 3 or 4 years to get bills through Parliament. So, there's the negotiations, there's the committees, there's the back and forth with the House of Lords. So it can take time to get bills through Parliament. And if you have a lot of bills that you want to push through, unless you're going to have Parliament open all the time, it's going to be difficult. Something positive. Tell me, guys, if I'm being too positive about the Labour government and the Labour Party. Please do tell me. But I think this is something that's positive. State or private school, the education backgrounds of the new cabinet. So out of 25 cabinet members, just 1 went to private school and 1 went to a grammar school, with the remainder 92% attending comprehensive school, according to analysis by the Sutton Trust. About 6% of children in the UK go to private school, meaning this cabinet closely reflects the educational experiences of the general public. But that starts to diverge when you look at higher education, with 40% of cabinet ministers having studied at Oxford, compared to just 1% of the UK population. Sky News looks at the education background of each of Keir Starmer's new top team. Ivan, thank you so much for that super chat. Thoughts for the King's speech on Wednesday the 17th? So I think the King's speech, well, it's difficult to predict it, but I think it will mention a lot about growing the economy. Thanks for that super chat. I think it mentioned a lot of it will be about growing the economy, fixing the damage of the last 14 years, and improving public services. I think those will be the key points of it. So it will be, okay, what we need to do going forward. I think it'll be about, well, it'll be the Labour manifesto. What we need to do is improve public services. We need to grow the economy, and growing the economy will mean we can fund public services. And I think that will be the main part of the King's speech. I don't see what else they would put into it. Maybe something about bringing the country together, maybe something about devolving more powers to local administrations, not Scotland, but local councils, and then city mayors. I think there'll be mention of more powers to city mayors, like Sadiq Khan and Andy Burnham. So I think city mayors will get a mention. And then, of course, housing, they'll mention housing as well. So I think pretty much everything that's been covered in the manifesto, I think, will be part of the King's speech. Why are the Tories obsessed with pigs? Uncle Buzz and Peppa Pig's World, Mad Lizzie and her pork markets, and Dodgy Dave making his sausage roll in a pig's. God, yes. Yeah, it is very strange. And the less we think about it, the better. So Keir Starmer went to a grammar school. It later became a private school, but the Tories tried to attack him as a hypocrite for going to a private school. It wasn't a private school when he joined. I think it became a private school while he was there, but he was already in the door. Angela Rayner went to a comprehensive. Rachel Reeves went to a comprehensive. Pat McFadden went to a comprehensive, David Lammy comprehensive, Yvette Cooper comprehensive, and so on. Most of them went to comprehensives. Is it the most important thing in the world? Not really, but it does show that they are, they're more in tune with the average, with the public than the likes of Boris Johnson, Jacob Rees-Mogg. Like I've said before, Eton should close down out of embarrassment. Like if Boris Johnson is a product of Eton, Jacob Rees-Mogg is a product of Eton, then Eton is a problem. Good friend Graham Hughes said that Britain has an Eton disorder. But if this is what Eton produces, then maybe Eton shouldn't exist. I'm not saying I'm not advocating for it to be closed down. Well, maybe, but if this is what it produces, garbage in, garbage out, it's supposed to produce quality. Boris Johnson and Jacob Rees-Mogg, are they as exceptions? Was it a bad year? Like, when you're growing grapes or tomatoes or something, you had a bad year. No, don't drink that wine. It was a bad year. Don't put that person into the House of Commons. It was a bad year. Stu, great to see you on the stream. Thank you so much for that support. Thank you so much, Stu. Sunak was the poor boy in that cabinet because he went to Winchester, not Eton. Yes. Tomato wine. Was that a Bloody Mary? Drink a Bloody Mary. Or is it corkscrew is the one? Anyway, guys, before we finish, we have a Brexit story. What would this channel be if it wasn't for a Brexit story? You've probably already heard this.
Well, good afternoon and thanks for being. We're going to begin this hour with breaking news. And the British technology company Dyson, famous for its vacuum cleaners, has announced that it is going to cut around 1,000 jobs. The company employs around 3,500 people in Britain, mainly at its site in Malmesbury in Wiltshire. Let's bring in our business presenter Ian King for more on this from the city. Ian, was this expected?
Well, I think you can say that if you'd looked at the tea leaves quite closely at what was going on in Dyson, it was certainly possible because the company has a relatively new chief executive, Hanno Kierna. He only joined the business in February this year from Tata, the parent company, of course, of Jaguar Land Rover. And it's not unusual for a new chief executive, once they've got their feet under the desk, to start looking at the business and assessing its staffing needs, because obviously headcount is a crucial part of any business. Now, we understand that this is part of a wider review of staffing numbers globally in Dyson. The company employs some 15,000 people worldwide, and the UK is merely being caught up in part of this sort of overall planning for Dyson's future headcount needs. Now, I've got a statement that I can read you from Hanno Kierna, the new Dyson chief executive. He says, "We have grown quickly, and like all companies, we review our global structures from time to time in order to ensure we're prepared for the future. As such, we are proposing changes to our organisation which may result in redundancies. Dyson operates in increasingly fierce and competitive global markets in which the pace of innovation and change is only accelerating. We know we always need to be entrepreneurial and agile, principles that are not new to Dyson. Decisions which impact close and talented colleagues are also always incredibly painful. Those whose roles are at risk of redundancy as a result of the proposals will be supported through the process." Now, so there's a couple of points to make on the back of that statement. One is that I say Dyson has a relatively new chief executive who naturally will be looking at the staffing requirements of the business over the last few years. The other point to make there is that reference to it operating in very, very competitive markets is pretty significant. Dyson's biggest market globally is now Asia, where its intellectual property is quite often stolen or appropriated in fairly short order by cheap competitors based in the region, and there may be an element of concern there that has instructed these redundancy announcements. Now, it's worth pointing out that Dyson's global R&D headquarters will remain in Malmesbury in Wiltshire. Viewers with a longer memory will recall that a few years ago, Dyson moved its main manufacturing operations from the UK to lower cost bases in Singapore, but it's research and development, which is the most high value added bit of the business, that does remain in the UK. And it's worth pointing out also that Dyson remains very, very committed to taking on new apprentices, which is something that it's invested quite heavily in recent years.
See, the thing is with British manufacturing is that the Tories have gutted British manufacturing. So you'll have the product development in Britain, but the manufacturing of the product, where most of the jobs will be outsourced, will be in Singapore, for example, or in some other parts of Asia. So, this is the guy who told people to vote for Brexit, who said it'd be a great idea for Britain to leave the European Union, and then as soon as it came to pass, what did he do? He moved his manufacturing out of Britain. These job losses are probably not related to Brexit directly, but if I don't know, he'll say it's a competitive market, but if your business is doing well, you're going to take on people, not lay them off. So it's probably the case that things are not going well for the company. They need to cut costs, and it seems to be worldwide. Ninja, thank you so much for that super chat. Hello Max, hope you're feeling more sane now that the Tories are no longer in power, or not in power. Yes, look, I'm a lot more positive than I was before. I was maybe a little bit overly cynical in some ways. Now, it's important to be critical, but I was a bit maybe overly cynical in some aspects of what I was expecting from Labour. So far, some things are good, some things are not so good, but for example, I mentioned earlier in the stream, West Streeting is meeting with doctors and nurses, dentists, to try and improve conditions there. So that's a good thing. That should be commended. Unfortunately, I believe in Scotland, there were some new Labour MPs who were lying about waiting lists. So that's not a good start. Keir Starmer, I don't know what his approach to Scotland is. We don't know yet. So we'll have to wait and see that. And I've said before that if Labour do not succeed, if they're not able to turn things around, they're going to end up losing support in Scotland, because I think a lot of the Labour MPs who did win this time around rode Keir Starmer's coattails. And if they're not able to deliver in Scotland, then they will be removed. So while this has been sold as a massive failure on the side of the SNP lost a huge number of seats. It's possible that they could win them back at the next general election or in by-elections if Labour is not able to achieve its goals, if they're not able to grow the economy. One thing is about growing the economy, but it has to be growth that ordinary people can see as an improvement. So I think there will be some improvements, but will it be enough? And they mentioned about house building. I think there are going to be problems with house building because you need workers, you need labourers. There's a massive shortage of those at the moment. And you'll need materials, and materials are much more expensive now. So you could start building lots of houses, like the private sector are being expected to do this, but then we're not talking about affordable and social housing. We're talking about just houses. And while that may take some of the pressure off, it's going to be still difficult for young people to get on the property ladder. And if they're not able to see any sort of improvement in their position, then Labour is going to lose support. So I think at the beginning, I want to wish them well. I hope that they're able to succeed, because if they do, then it improves life for everyone. But if they don't, they know that they're going to lose out to other parties. What is the DWP-EE reforms? I'm not familiar with the DWP-EE reforms. Need to change the DWP. Do Labour want to add the death toll or not? And these are some of the things we're going to cover on the channel over the next number of months. What's happening with the DWP? What's happening with health? What's happening with transport? What's happening with a whole range of different departments? What is Labour planning to do? What can they achieve? Things like the DWP, they can be changed without money. Treating people with respect doesn't cost money. They need to remove a lot of these private companies that are involved. They need to be stripped out of the public sector. There's too many private companies in the public sector. They need to be removed because they're profit driven, they're target driven, and their focus is not on improving the quality of life for people on benefits, for example. It's about their own bottom line. So that needs to change. That requires time, and it requires effort. And of course, there will be pushback. And, we've seen already some senior Labour MPs have received donations from private companies. So it will be a situation, you're going to see a situation where government ministers are going to clash maybe with their donors, and they'll have to pick a side, the side of ordinary people or the side of their donors. Stop calling us clients would be a start. Yes, the treating people who use the work, the job centre or the DWP, who rely on the DWP for support, calling them clients like customers. Yes, that needs to change. It's a cosmetic thing, but it would change the whole dynamic, I believe, of this department. Treating people with respect. I keep saying, if people want to work, they'll go out and find work. If they don't want to work, then what's the point in forcing them into jobs where they don't want to be? As we heard before, who wants somebody who's not interested in being a carer, working as a carer? That's a terrible scenario. Anyway, guys, we're almost at the end of the stream, so I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you so much for your super chats, your support, and thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job. Will Labour release a Brexit impact report? I hope so, and a full Russia report. Probably more the former than the latter. I think they want to distance themselves from the Russia report. Don't know why, but I think it could be too much of a hot potato. What would the alternatives be? Friends? Humans, maybe. Human beings. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this.
In the wake of Labour's landslide win in the UK and the surprise third place for National Rally in the French elections, people across Europe are asking, what now for the right? Our assumptions, projections and expectations correspondent, Jonathan Goodenough, has more. Yes, that's right, the rise of the far right, the hard right, the radical right and right said Fred has been predicted for many years now, but so far voters have failed to give them enough support. Did you just say failed? Yes, we've been expecting this for some time now, but so far we've been disappointed. Disappointed? Over the weekend in France, many National Rally candidates were blocked by a combination of the Popular Front and centrists. Blocked? But many are saying that the triumph of the hard right has only been delayed. Jonathan? Yes? Do you want the hard right to win? What? It's just the way you're reporting it. It almost sounds like you admire them. No, I'm strictly impartial, like all reporters. Just going to give everyone a chance to stop laughing at that? I'm only reporting the facts. I mean, look at the UK, where Reform, a brand new party, gained just over 4 million votes. Do they have anything to do with UKIP, who in 2015 gained just under 4 million votes? No, all of the UKIP candidates were definitely real. And Reform has only got 5 MPs. Yes, but it's a good start. For what? For Nigel Farage's inexorable takeover of the whole political establishment. Inexorable? That's certainly what it feels like. All across the world, the right is on the march. Unless people organise against it and don't vote for it. Sorry? It's only inexorable if people actually vote for them, and so far the results are pretty mixed on that. And like in France, where there was a genuine chance of the far right winning, other parties came together to oppose them, and the voters didn't give them a mandate. It could still happen though, but it doesn't have to. But it could, and wouldn't that be exciting? Jonathan? Yes? Are you okay? It's just, I miss the drama. Well, soon you'll have the Tory leadership race to cover. Yes, but it won't be the same, will it? I mean, sure, some people will say some mad things and we'll have a laugh, but they won't be running the country, so it won't really matter. I suppose. And this new lot just keep going on about service and respect and being the grown-ups and getting on with it, and it's just boring. Well, apparently today, Starmer dodged a question about reconnecting with Muslim voters. Did he? Brilliant. Maybe that will help the far right. Or the far left. Next up, as Democrats in America struggle over whether or not to back Joe Biden, we ask, does this make the re-election of Donald Trump inevitable? Oh God, I'm doing it now.
It was a perfect critique of the BBC. If you look at the reporting of the BBC over the weekend, but in regards to France, it's like, oh no, Le Pen didn't win. This is a disaster. So that was wonderful. So guys, have a great week. I'll see you on Friday, same bat time, same bat channel. As always, take care, good night, and once again, thank you so much for your support.